Welcome to Classic Car Cave. I wanted to put up for want of a better word, a second video. Now the first video I ever did on this Evans Waterless Coolant was 7 years ago. I believe it was 7 years ago. And I've had it in the car all that time. I also have it in my Mini Cooper road car, and I also put it inside my XK150, my 1958 XK150. And basically I want to go over, because there's a lot of talk about Evans coolant, about, you know, it's pure glycol, it's this, it's that. There's a lot of misconceptions with it, and I'd like to kind of put the record straight. And the reason that I use it, it's not a recommendation that you use it for everyday use, but I wanted to go over some of the reasons why I use it as opposed to water and glycol and coolant. So one of the first things I want to go over is as I've said, I've had it in this car since the engine was rebuilt. It's 7-8 years now, whatever it is. I've never ever filled it up. I've never had to top it up. It's found its own level. Now this car has a header tank in it only because the radiator is lower. So it's not a system where it's going into an expansion tank and being pushed back. It just has an overflow on the radiator cap. But the reason it has the header tank is because obviously the shape of the bonnet, the radiator had to be lower in the design. So I'm going to take the top off, I'm going to take the radiator cap off, or the header cap, which is the same thing basically. All it is just a header tank anyway. So I'm going to take that off, and I've got this hydrometer here. I'm going to take out some of this Evans coolant. Okay, so this stuff, as I said, it's never been out. You can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this to the bench and show you, and then I'll pop it back in again afterwards. But I just want to show you the colour of this. And the colour of brand new stuff. And as I said, that's been in there 7 or 8 years. But the thing I really like about this is all the hoses on this car, which were put on when I rebuilt it, so it's about 8 years ago. They're all in brilliant condition. They're not hard, which they would be if they were under pressure a lot. And they're as good internally and externally and inside the radiator and everywhere else the day I put it in. So I'm going to take you over to the bench and I'll show you how this looks now, and I'll explain a few things. So just a quick one, I'd like to do a little kind of social experiment. I mentioned something on a video, on the last video, about how these big YouTubers talk to other big YouTubers and they never seem to want to help, or don't help the smaller ones. Now I've just found a chap, his name is Tony Harmer. I'll put his name on the bottom and his channel on the bottom. Now, just recently, I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, he bought a 1989 Classic Mini Sky, I believe it is, and he's just started his journey on YouTube. And I've subbed to him, but he only has 1 sub. What I'd like to see, if we could do a bit of a social experiment and see if we can get this guy sort of like 100 subs by the end of the month. It costs nothing to do it, and then let's see how he goes on after 3 or 4 months or 6 months. You know, if at that time he's not producing what you want to watch, that's fine. You can change, or if you're happy with it, keep going with it. But I'd like to just see if we can't bring his channel up and see how he goes with it, and see if and hopefully what will happen is he'll produce better and better videos. And you know, I mean, camera gear costs money, but I'd like to see how he gets on, if we can give him some encouragement. So, as I said, it's on the bottom here. Please go along and have a quick look. He's only got a video, I think 1, possibly 2, and just subscribe, or go and have a look at least and have a view, and let's just see if we can't help him along, and see what happens in 3 months' time, and we'll revisit it. This is Classic Cool 180. And it's because the boiling point is 180. Now that might seem, wow, that's ridiculously high. Yeah. The reason I use this for I only use this in my vehicles that are not daily drivers. I would not recommend this for a daily driver. There's no need to go to the expense of using it. The fact that it's a daily driver, the fact that the fluid's being moved on a everyday basis for hours and hours and hours, you don't need the protection that this gives. The reason I use it in my classic cars is because I don't use them in the winter, for instance. They're off the road, so for around 6 months of the year they're not used, they're static, they're idle. Now if you use coolant and you use water, you will get rust. This is a fact. You've got water in it, it will go against the metal and it will corrode and it will go brown, and you need to change it on a reasonably regular basis, 2-5 years, whatever. That's entirely up to you. A 50-50 mix, whatever, 60-40, whatever you want. But you will get rust in that system. What will also happen is when you don't use it for many weeks and months at a time, is the sediment will drop out and it will sit in the bottom of the radiator, and it will start to plug things up. You look at a car that's been lying for years and years, and you open it and it's just like brown baby shit coming out of it, because this is it separating, and it will do that if you leave the coolant in too long. And if you leave it in too long, you've lost the protection and the whole point of having the glycol in it. So, but for a classic car that you're not driving on a regular basis, this is the perfect situation, even though it's expensive. The two things you are doing, the reason I use it is, one is you don't get any dropout. The car can sit for a year and it still won't come apart. So the chemical build-up of it makes it stay together as one element. There's no dropout, there's no sediment, no nothing. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's got a very good feature for aluminium and metal. It's got an inhibitor in it, and now you'll hear people say, oh, all it is pure glycol. Now that's not true. That is untrue. If you look at the MSDS sheet, which shows you that there is glycol based in it, there is also a lot of other chemicals in it which they don't tell you about. But I can guarantee you now, if you believe that statement, that this is just purely glycol, expensive glycol, stick glycol neat in your engine and tell me if it will do the same thing, and I guarantee it won't. So all I'm saying is for classic car enthusiasts, if you're not using your vehicle a lot, this is perfect. The other thing about it is it's a massive drop in pressure. You can have the car at full heat and still take the radiator cap off, and it will not, you'll hear a wisp of air, but you can still run it. You can run it. You couldn't do that with water and glycol mix, or water, whatever. It would blow out like a volcano. So this proves that the pressure drop is massive. Now, when you've got a pressurized system, what happens is the hoses get very hard over a period of time. You know yourself, when you've had a car with many heat cycles, eventually with the pressure in it, it will make the hose, the top hose, bottom, all the hoses, it will make them really stiff, and you can hardly move them. This is a fact. Check it yourself. If you go out and check your own car, and you will see that even on a modern car. Whereas this vehicle here, which has had it in for 7 or a bit years, it's still, the hoses, okay, they're silicone, but they're still as good as the day I put them on, and they're still as good internally. You can see even on the rubber cap here that there's no deterioration whatsoever. So all I'm saying is I recommend this for people who have a classic car where they don't use it on a regular basis, or the car is idle for over the winter period, put it that way. It does run a little bit hotter than water, probably 2 to 3, 4 degrees maybe. But I've never had an overheating problem with it. I've never had to change it. I've never had to top it up. So I can only tell you from a classic car point of view, if you've got parts that you're trying to save and you want less corrosion, this is the way to go. For an everyday car, no. I don't think it's worth doing. So just to finish up, this is the stuff we took out of the XK150. Hopefully you can see it. I can't really bring the... and this is it inside the hydrometer. You can see, okay, this is a lot thinner than this, but you can see they're almost the same colour. There's no darkness in it, there's no difference in the colour. And this is out the hydrometer. This has not been out for 7 or a bit years. This is brand spanking new. It's been cycled probably once in the XK, and what we did was once we took the running gear off it, before we put the body back on, we obviously had to take the radiator off and the hoses. So this will be going back in the vehicle the minute we put the heater element back in, the heater matrix. We had to take it out because we had some things to do. And once the new heater valve comes, we'll put it all back in again. So I'm only recommending this for classic cars that you're not using on a regular basis. There is a lot of crap talked about this Evans coolant. There's a lot of people that are really anti it, positive it, and so on and so forth. So there's old, but like somebody said to me before, the problem with opinions, they're like arseholes, everybody's got one. But there are a lot of people come out and they say the fact is this is inflammable, this is flammable, which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. And I defy anybody to show me that you can make that this thing is flammable. I've tried all kinds of tests with it, it's not flammable. They're also saying it's pure glycol. Again, this is not a true statement. There is a glycol mix in it, but it is not 100% glycol. There's other elements, and there's definitely inhibitors in it, which you don't get in the ethylene glycol mix. So you don't have to take my word for it. If you want to try it out, do. But I only use them in classic cars because they're sat stationary for a long time, and I like the idea that the pressure drop is over 80%. That's a massive, massive drop. If you've got a bad system, a bad cooling system, this will do nothing for it. And it's the same with water and glycol. If you've got a bad system, putting more glycol on it, won't make any difference. If the system is clean and good, this works great, and the same with water and glycol. So all I'm suggesting is you use it only where you've got a vehicle that's not running on a regular basis. So, as usual, stay safe, keep the faith, enjoy your hobby, and I hope that's of some help. Take care.